Hey, welcome to TC Disc Golf. Today we're talking about the Discraft Vulture. The Discraft Vulture is a disc that has been in and out of my bag. It's rated as a 10.502. And now, I've heard this disc be called overstable, or very stable. Not necessarily overstable, but very stable. A disc that you throw and no matter what, it's gonna fight out. And to an extent, that's true. But I would say that this disc is a disc that takes the angles that you put it on. So when you put it on anhyzer, it can actually hold an anhyzer for quite a while, especially if you're not giving it a lot of height, which when I'm in an open field, my tendency on my anhyzer is to let things ride high. But when I take and I release it on like a course at my normal release level, chest high or so, it will actually hold that angle for a long while before stabling out. This disc actually has a very similar feel in its rim, even though it's a little bit more shallow, to the Stalker. And originally when I added this disc to my bag, I actually had the Stalker and then this disc. And this disc was a disc that would basically be I need to go a little bit further with the same flight. And so if I needed to throw a little bit shorter, I would throw the Stalker. If I needed to throw a little bit longer, I would throw the Vulture. And that's how my bag existed for a long time. And then I introduced, in between those two, the Wild Disc Tasmanian Devil. And it kind of, became my 7, my 9, and my 10 speed. Though the Vulture was my furthest flying disc for a long while after I introduced it to my bag. What initially removed it from my bag is I have it in 2 different plastics. I have the regular Z and then I have a Tour Series Z. And that one ended up, I don't know if it beat in or what, but it became overstable much faster than the regular Z. And so with my natural release, with my inexperience, I ended up turning it over all the time and it was incredibly frustrating. And the thing that solidified it moving out of my bag was that Wild Disc came out with a prototype driver, and actually came out with a handful of these prototypes, and there really wasn't consistency, so the driver never made it to PDGA approval. But when I would play, I would practice for fun, there was this prototype driver that had a similar flight but was way more dependable. I could get that flex line that I really like out of my Stalker on a natural release. I could take and have it fly straight and long, just like the Vulture. In fact, the distance was just as good, if not better, most of the time. So I ended up throwing that prototype driver a lot. But being a prototype, couldn't use it in PDGA rounds, and then also I couldn't use it if I was worried about losing it, because some of the prototypes were super overstable and some of them were just that perfect flight. That straight for a long while and then at the end kind of a pushing fade. That being said, eventually the need for a Vulture in my bag for PDGA rounds has greatly outweighed how much I like the flight of that prototype. And so I've actually been throwing the Vulture again as my main bag, and also during tournament and league rounds. And recently was able to play it at a tight wooded course named BRP, Blue Ribbon Pines. And I had quite a few number of holes where there was a tight gap that I had to fit through and get it to go long. And I was able to do that quite successfully. The Vulture has once again found a really good place in my bag. And the nice thing is, with keeping some of these discs that you don't like for one reason or the other, is that if you give yourself time, if you continue to practice, continue to improve, a lot of times you go back and you find all the reasons that you loved these discs in the first place. This disc is a disc that can handle a lot of torque, which is something as I'm working on getting more snap out of the disc, getting a better release, I'm seeing this Vulture be able to handle that. So it's really nice to have this disc in my bag that can be a complement to the Orca, where the Orca will give me some turn and then fade a little bit harder. This disc is a little bit more narrow flight path where it'll go straight for a long while and then have a pushing fade. And if I really want to on this disc, I can get a little bit of ground play, but that's something that I have to choose. I'm really glad to have it back in my bag, but I'm also excited that maybe some version of another Wild Disc prototype that gets PDGA approved and named could eventually maybe replace this Vulture again. Until then, the Vulture's in my bag to stay. Discraft Vulture is definitely worth checking out and seeing if there's a place for it in your bag. And if you're looking to add any of the Wild Discs to your bag, especially those sea otters because they have such a great flight, you can use my code in the description below to get 10% off your order at Wild Disc. Please share this with your friends. It helps me out a ton. And as always, I'll catch you in the next video.